how the narrative of this game has changed in the last 10 minutes. We're all ready to sit here going, oh, what was the point of that? Spurs are really struggling at home. Manchester United get by with one shot on target. And then things go absolutely bonkers in the last 10 minutes. It finishes up 2 apiece. Stevie, what an ending to this game. And I suppose it's Manchester United who are happier, considering it looked like they threw it away right at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at 1-0, Thomas Frank tried all he could, bringing on players, taking players off. Nothing really seemed to work until Odegaard and Tell came on. A couple of minutes after that, all of a sudden there was a little bit of life about Tottenham. Manchester United up until then had been comfortable defensively, as you said. They didn't particularly cover themselves in glory going forward, but again, it's Mbomo with a superb header, just picks his spot, and it really, for all intents and purposes, it looked like a somewhat comfortable, boring 1-0 win for Man United on the road. But as you said, all things changed with 10 minutes to go. Odegaard, for me, was not the biggest difference. Obviously, Tell getting that goal was huge. But from there, then we actually got some excitement.
Another 2-2 draw, as we saw against Forest for United, but a very different feeling to this one, considering the way that they had to come back. And De Ligt, you could say, was definitely questionable for the goal, redeeming himself right at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. A certain amount of irony in a set piece stinging Tottenham at the end of the game, because set pieces has been one of those things that Tottenham have been able to point to this season. One of the very few things, really, they've been able to point to and say, this is definitely working for us. So I'd have expected them to see this one out. They did not. Right at the last, Matthijs de Ligt rises up and, as you say, kind of redeems himself a little bit after being turned by Matthijs Tel. I guess my disappointment with United here is that they had the better of the first half and they got the goal and they were working the advantages quite well. I was quite interested with Mbomo's positioning. Not accustomed to seeing him on the left of the attack, and that looked like a ploy to either have him run over the top of Pedro Porro or keep him away from Mickey van der Ven. Or both, who knows? I mean, if there's one defender who has the pace to keep up with Mbomo, it's Mickey van der Ven. So maybe they just wanted to put Mbomo on the other side of the pitch. But it seemed to be working, and they got the goal, they worked the advantage, and then from there, did they stop playing a little bit? I'm not going to say they started protecting the 1-0, but as long as the game started to drift, Man United looked quite happy there. And they didn't go ahead and try and press home that advantage against what is a very fragile Spurs team at home that for the last year or so have done not a lot that's particularly good. The fans have become quite accustomed to watching them lose and concede. There were boos at half-time. There were boos when Xavi Simons came off in the 80th minute, although those boos turned out to be quite ill-placed, I guess. They didn't turn the screw. And then they force themselves to get into a position where they have to rescue it at the death. So if Amorim's sitting back and doing the post-mortem on this, that's probably where he's going to be the most disappointed, despite the fact that coming out of it with a point after all this, it is a positive.
Yeah, given all those facts, Stevie. Go on, Stevie.
No, I think in terms of Man United, they are not in a position yet where they can go away from home, go 1-0 up, and then start taking the game to the opposition and finish the game off. That Manchester United are not capable of that yet. What Manchester United did is pretty much what suits them right now, because they're all about counter-attacking. They cannot go on the front foot against anybody because they leave too many gaps, and they're not as strong defensively as they should be. So I think United, in terms of the way they went about the second half, I think that's what they are. What we saw in the second half is what Manchester United are. They're a side that on the counter-attack can be dangerous, particularly with Mbomo. Cunha normally can be dangerous as well. I mean, Sesko towards the end of the game had a couple of great opportunities. Again, because of the counter-attack. They to me are a counter-attacking side. So I don't really think we should be surprised that they just wanted to, or they were just comfortable sitting and then try to keep things in front of them.
Spurs were on the ropes, Stevie. They had their chance, obviously, to go and push them against a home crowd that were very much against their team. As Sam said, obviously booed at half-time. Yeah. Was that not the opportunity for United to really push for a second?
I don't think so. I don't think they're capable. If United push, then they leave gaps. And that, to me, would bring Tottenham into the game. You know, the way the game was going, Tottenham were clueless. Tottenham were just knocking the ball around, but they weren't getting anywhere. And it wasn't until that equaliser, 84th minute, that there was actually some life in Spurs. So I don't necessarily think you can look at United and say, well, they got that wrong. I mean, poor defending from De Ligt, 100%. You know, there's nothing composed about how he's trying to defend there. He has no idea where the ball is. He's overcommitted because he thinks it's somewhere and ends up giving Tell that half a yard. I mean, that's just an individual mistake, in my opinion, that brings Spurs back in the game. Now, when you're away from home, a stadium that size, with a crowd that are absolutely desperate for something, and you give them it with 10 minutes to go, not only do you get back in the game, but you're playing against 10 men, then no wonder the stadium comes alive. But I guess at the end of it, though, you got to give them credit. The header from De Ligt, I mean, incredible to come back with 10 men and make it 2-2. However, I have to say one thing. Why was the goalkeeper standing behind the line in the net when he tries to save it? I mean, seriously? If he stays in front of the line, he might have saved that. But he's not. He's actually standing in the goal. So, good luck with that.
It's, of course, Steve Nicol, who played in goal for Sheffield Wednesday back in the day.
Correct.
So certainly has knowledge.
Always stay on it or in front of the line, Dan. I learned
there
that.
You go. And what's this, Steve? The W? W with your hands.
That's the one, boy.
Sam, it's interesting. You think back to the last international break. We obviously were discussing the future of Ruben Amorim and saying it's very possible he could be gone, considering what we saw from United in those opening couple of months. How that's changed now, manager of the month, blah, blah, blah. For you, what has been the biggest difference?
I think over the last month or so, I feel like Manchester United have settled into their rhythm a little bit, partially because they now have all of the pieces in place and they're up to speed with their new attack. I think getting Mbeumo and Cunha over the line early in the summer was great, but Šeško took a while and then he wasn't quite fit enough to start. And when you're reconfiguring and you're literally putting 3 new players into the attack, they haven't played with each other. They haven't played with the supporting midfielders. They're going to need a bit of time to adjust to their surroundings, but also to gel with each other as well. And so just having those 3 be able to play significant chunks of minutes together, I think has definitely helped. And I'm seeing Šeško is getting ever so slightly better every passing week.
That's a low bar, Sam.
Well, yeah, so he started really badly, but I'm trying to be positive here. But look at Mbeumo. Okay, let's be really positive. Look at how Mbeumo has really come to life, and Cunha's incredible work rate and ability to retain the ball has also really excited United fans. So I'd say the attack sort of naturally meshing is a part of it. Also, just like a bit of a shout out here. I didn't think I'd find myself saying this, but I thought he was good again today. Casemiro actually starting to step up. And I know it doesn't usually last long, and it might be in a month's time that he slopes back off again. But for now, Casemiro really carrying his own weight in midfield has made a difference to this team. So, look, we're not trying to say that Man United are back or they're Champions League bound or anything, but after the year they had, small positives like that, they just have to be seen as building blocks.
Damn full of sunshine, the glass is half full, everything is well with the world. Let's turn ourselves now to everyone's favourite Scotsman and famously anti-Manchester United. Stevie, what's the other side of that argument?
Beg your pardon.
Well, you don't have to apologise, that's just the way you are.
Yeah. Listen, United are doing what they've got to do to pick up points, and they did it again today. You know, this is a side that has an advantage over certainly the bigger sides who are in Europe. You know, they're playing week to week. There's no European football, and it made me think during this game. Because of that, I'm wondering why is Amorim continuing to make all of these substitutions? I get it. I got it last year because they were in Europe. I got it last year because they were trying to concentrate on the Europa League title. But they're not playing Saturday, Wednesday. So why are they making so many changes? And the commentator was talking about how he always changes a centre-back. I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me. There was no reason to change the centre backs. Well, beg your pardon. Harry Maguire was injured, but no doubt he probably would have changed them anyway. And to make so many substitutes, I really don't get it. I don't. From a coach's point of view, Manchester United, in my opinion, are sitting there playing against Tottenham, keeping the ball in front of them. There's nothing happening. The game's dead in terms of Spurs going forward. So why don't you just leave it as it is and see the game out? Instead of making changes. I don't care how much you've warmed up. When you go into a game, it takes you time to settle into the pace of the game, picking up your proper positions, all of those things. Now, all of those things were happening before all the substitutions. So, just little things, I think, that make a big difference. I just don't agree with making so many substitutions when you are not under any real pressure. You've got things under control, so why are you changing it? Tottenham, on the other hand, have got to change it. They've got to try something. They've just got to make a move, because what they've got on the field was not working, as opposed to United, who weren't scintillating, but actually were really, really comfortable, and they never looked in any danger.
Dan, can
Stevie,
we talk about these? We'll talk about these changes from Spurs' perspective. Stevie just says there, Spurs had to make changes, and they did, and it did end up bringing them back into the game. And I thought it was just worth pointing out a couple of them in particular. And it's two players that I happen to think make a really big difference to what is otherwise a pretty stodgy Spurs team. It's Udogie and Odobert, and their ability to combine and underlap and overlap on the left flank. I think it's really impressive. It's starting to blossom this season. Odobert didn't get to play that much last season, so it wasn't so much of a factor. But this time around, it's really working. And I was at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on Tuesday for the Copenhagen game. Copenhagen were terrible, so I'm not going to sit there and say that Spurs were superb or whatever, because they played a team that would struggle to survive in the Premier League. However, on my sideline for the first half, sat in the box, I could see Udogie and Odobert. They were 15 meters from me, and their communication and their combinations in terms of overlapping and underlapping really, really, really strong. And as those two were brought onto the pitch today, that is what really discombobulated Manchester United. Discombobulated me too. I can barely say the word. And Odobert, of course, is quite a big factor in this turnaround. So Thomas Frank there, he got boos for bringing off Xavi Simons, and the player that came on was Matthijs de Ligt, who scored the goal. And he brought on Udogie and he brought on Odobert, who I think were a significant factor in combining ahead of the second one as well. So well done to Thomas Frank there. I must admit, I've not been hugely impressed with the job that he has done so far at Spurs. They've left a lot to be desired. So credit where it's due in this respect.
Steve, I don't know if you remember, we did a show after, I think it was Brighton Spurs. I think it finished 2-2. And you were so excited about what you saw from Spurs. You're saying, forget the scoreline. This is really positive stuff we're seeing from Thomas Frank. Yeah. What has happened since then?
I think, to be honest, it's just there's always this argument about who's at fault here when things are not going well. Is it the manager? Is it the players? I mean, the manager at the end of the day, it's his job to get everybody going. But Tottenham seem to have gone flat from the halfway line forward. Mm. The obvious change from Ange was impressive because it was so chaotic. Then you look at what Thomas Frank has done, and I was impressed with it because it looked calculated. They were solid, they were strong, they were organised. And then I'm looking at the supposed talent as individuals on paper. And it seemed to me like a recipe for success. You've still got that flair and ability going forward, but now you've organised it so that defensively, when you do lose the ball, teams are not cutting you apart. So I think the platform was what I saw after that particular game. But then it's just fallen flat. Yeah. And individually, I mean. And I think the point I'm making here is borne out because when you see Odobert coming on, you see Tel coming on, you see Udogie coming on, they had an energy and a desire about them that wasn't there before. Certainly wasn't not in this game. So it's up to Thomas Frank to put his players, his forward-thinking players, on the field in a frame of mind, in a position where they're actually going to have the desire and the will to succeed. Because right now it's just gone flat.
Mm-hmm.
I think
the final third, it just streams through, Sam, doesn't it? Like, you look at it, that's 1 win in 6 now at home. And no matter how you paint it, this is a huge disappointment for the fans who, of course, were so excited when Thomas Frank comes in. You obviously, as you said, been to the stadium quite a few times this season. Like, what are the locals saying?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've been to the stadium. I know Spurs fans. Some of my friends are season ticket holders, and no one seems hugely pleased at the moment. But this is not just, let's be clear, this is not just a Thomas Frank thing. It's like, for the last year, it's been pretty miserable. They've lost a lot of games at home. And the stat that popped up at half time for me was only Burnley have taken fewer shots in the Premier League so far this season than Spurs. Wow. So that's not particularly great, is it? For a team with the amount of talent that we could reel off in the attacking areas, that's not good enough. And one of the reasons that Odobert and Udogie as a left-sided combination feels so important right now, and in addition to that, why Mohamed Kudus, when he plays, feels like such an important figure for them on the right-hand side, is because they get nothing through the centre of the pitch in terms of being able to move the ball forward. And all season long, up until this week, Thomas Frank has basically played Rodrigo Bentancur and João Palhinha as a pair, and neither of them are particularly good at progressing the ball forward. Now, he started to change that recently, and he's mixed in Pat Matar on Tuesday and today and swapping in and out Bentancur and Palhinha, perhaps finally accepting that he needs more from his central midfield combination. Because if you've got nothing there, you can't get the ball to Xavi Simons as much as you want, who is clearly the most likely difference maker in the team. But if he's being starved of the ball, what can you do? And if you don't have any central progression, you become very predictable, because teams can block out the middle and just let you pass through down the wings, because that's all that Tottenham are able to do. So it feels like when one problem is solved, another one springs up, and another, he plugs that hole, another one springs. And it's been difficult for Thomas Frank. It has. It really has been quite tough, but he is maybe steadily working his way through this very slowly.
Again, so optimistic, Sam. It's beautiful.
Well,
must be beautiful in your world.
I think you got to say, Xavi Simons hasn't done Thomas Frank any favours.
No, the fact that no other club wanted him, I think, says a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah.
He's ended up at Spurs.
I agree that they need to get him the ball more, but quite frankly, when they got him the ball, or when they've gotten the ball this season, he's done absolutely nothing with it. And I was trying to put myself in Spurs fans' shoes. Why were they booing? Because he wasn't doing anything. The best thing for him was to come off. So I didn't quite understand that. So, yeah. Again, it's the old debate, who's to blame? And at the end of the day, Xavi Simons has done absolutely nothing to help Thomas Frank spoil other fans.
Let's tie a bow on this segment by last question, Sam. Who finishes higher come the end of the season?
Man United.
Because
one game a week is a very powerful advantage to have in a ridiculously packed schedule these days. And I'm going to be really honest, while I've been really positive, or tried to be really positive about Spurs working their way out of the muck, I'm not totally convinced that they're going to do it to the point where they can finish at a top 6 level. And that is me maybe coming back to earth, especially for you. I've got more faith in this Manchester United attack doing the business than this Spurs attack managed by Thomas Frank.
Stephen?
I absolutely agree with Sam. Huge advantage just playing week to week, and definitely going forward. There's no reason why Mbeumo doesn't keep scoring goals. Cunha eventually is going to score more goals, and maybe Sesko can start getting some goals as well. So yeah, I think the difference will be moving forward, the forward line, plus having one game a week.